So in this video, we're going to talk about my most favorite foods that will really help support and balance your hormones. And what's interesting is one of these foods I've talked about, but I found some really cool science on two foods that we haven't talked about. So let's dive in because I want to break down the science and I want to show you how this fits into a fasting lifestyle. Ready? Here we go. So first, I just want to bring everybody into the conversation for a hot moment. We have to remember that when we look at a 24-hour period, we have a time when we're fasting. I taught that to you in Fast Like a Girl. And we have a time where we're eating. And the idea when we look at metabolic health is that we should be able to switch in and out of these two states. And what's really interesting about this metabolic rhythm, this metabolic switch, is that when we dial it in and we get it really on point, it absolutely helps our hormonal rhythm. So in Fast Like a Girl, I showed you how fasting can really balance hormones when you cycle it and you bring it in and out. What I'm now starting to do with you all here, and I have a book coming for you all very soon that I cannot wait to announce and bring to you, is we got to talk about the eating window. And what is it in the eating window that we should be avoiding, and what should we be eating in order to keep that hormonal rhythm in balance? And on this video, we're going to go through three very specific things. Now, before I dive into that, I just want to point out that the killers of hormones are your refined white sugar, your refined white flour, alcohol, the endocrine disrupting chemicals like obesogens that are being poured into our food system. So I really like when you walk into a grocery store, I really like for you to stay on the outside of those aisles because everything in the middle aisles are where we start to go astray with our food. It's highly processed food that's really damaging to our hormones. Or better yet, make sure you're shopping at a farmer's market. We try to do that in my household as much as possible. Okay, with that foundation in mind, let's bring back into the conversation, the eating window food conversation, two major types of foods. One falls under the category of phytoestrogens, and the other one falls under the category of phytoprogestins, which is really cool because I haven't talked to you all about phytoprogestins. So we're going to dive into that here in a moment. Now, I want to address, because I know this is we're living in the most interesting time because we've gone from this cultural hush where we don't talk about our cycles, we don't talk about menopause, to what I call cultural chaos. And put in the comments if you're like, yeah, I'm really confused. So we're bringing back into at least the perimenopause and menopause conversation, should we be doing HRT and patches and troches and creams and all those bioidenticals that are accessible to us. And I love that this conversation is being had, but we don't have a real clear answer yet. So, but at least we're open to it. So I'd like to bring back into the conversation phytoestrogens. And I did a really beautiful interview with my favorite integrative OB. Her name is Dr. Felice Gersh on the Resetter podcast. My team will leave the link in here where we talk about the power of phytoestrogens for bringing estrogen levels up. And what we know is that around 40, that estrogen levels are starting to decline. Specifically estradiol. She is the most powerful form of estrogen that released an egg out of our ovaries every month and also supplied great neuroprotective benefits and cardiovascular benefits. Every single organ system in the body has a receptor site for estradiol. So as estradiol is going down, our overall estrogen levels are going down. We need to look at bringing some of these phytoestrogens back in. And the most famous one, and the one I'm hoping we're going to bring back to the food conversation, is soy. So if you've been scared to eat soy, I really want you to take note of what I'm about to say, because I'm going to give you some really cool science that is showing that soy actually can be a protective estrogen and can actually protect us from certain hormonal cancers. So here we go. Here's some of the studies for you to know. And I'll link all the studies in there for the science hounds that want to take this to your doctor, or if you are a doctor and you're listening to this and you just want to rest assured that what I'm saying has science behind it, here you go. Okay, so a couple of ones that I really like. The first one is just a 2013 study that said eating soy isoflavonoids, which is what this is, can significantly increase estrogen levels. So straight across study just showing when we're eating soy isoflavonoids, like something in edamame or tofu, or I found this really cool dried soy that was neat. I always like just give me what nature made the best, and let's not do too much to it. But if you love edamame, I highly recommend bringing edamame back into it and tofu even, because we haven't altered that too much. But so 2013 showed that it increased estrogen. Okay, the next one for my menopausal women. So a 2021 study showed that eating isoflavonoids and other phytoestrogens, so there's a lot of them, and I'll talk about some of them here in a moment, significantly reduced symptoms of menopause. Okay, so let's talk about the most prominent symptom of menopause, which is a hot flash. That is when estrogen hits a low, and then your body turns up its heat. So if we can bring some of these plant-based estrogens back into our diet, we can keep our level of estrogen a little bit higher, even if we're doing a patch, even if we're doing creams. It's a beautiful combination, and keep that estrogen level a little bit higher than if you were not doing the addition of the phytoestrogens. And that will make sure that the estrogen doesn't plummet so low you end up with a hot flash. So I love, and the study went on to talk about other symptoms of low estrogen, like mental clarity. Remember, I taught you all here that estrogen brings the girl gang with her, right? So whenever estrogen comes in during our cycle, she brings dopamine and serotonin and acetylcholine and glutamate and oxytocin and BDNF. She brings all these neurochemicals with her. So when she goes away, those chemicals become more vulnerable, and all of a sudden your brain focus becomes really different. So again, coming back to the power of the earth in providing us a phytoestrogen like soy can really help with all kinds of menopausal symptoms. Okay, here's one of my favorite studies that I'm bringing you. This one is a 2020 review that showed soy isoflavonoids speed up metabolism. Okay, this one, you have to understand, I am not a fan of a magic pill for weight loss, for speeding up our metabolism. I am all about teaching you a lifestyle that brings yourself back into rhythm. We have been discussing this metabolic rhythm and how it relates to your hormonal rhythm. Now, one of the things that's interesting that this 2020 study showed us was that when we bring certain soy phytoestrogens back into our diet, like soy, is that it speeds up metabolism by stimulating what we call myoblasts. And myoblasts are cells that build muscle. So you could literally take this study and say, oh, that's interesting. Soy has a muscle building property to it. Now, there's been great discussion on bringing protein back. There's been a lot of great discussion in the menopausal world about the power of building muscle just on our longevity. But can we now bring back, based off studies like this 2021, can we bring back the idea that all the different foods, all the different proteins that help us build muscle are massively important for the perimenopause and menopausal experience, and soy is one of them. Okay, the last couple things I want to talk about and I've mentioned this before, is that soy isoflavonoids can also improve bone density. And I'm going to just take you on a little side turn here on bone density, which is AKA osteoporosis. So osteoporosis happens because of the loss of estrogen. And so again, let's bring the phytoestrogens back in. That's what this study says, is that, and I'll give you the exact quote, they found that soy isoflavonoids increased bone density in the spine and the femurs, that's your leg, of postmenopausal women. Okay? The femur head, The acetabulum, this is your hip. So we have a lot of hip replacements going on because of that bone density issue. So how about we bring soy back into that conversation? I love that. Now, there are a lot of different ways before I move on to the second food different forms of soy that you might find interesting. Like you might be listening to this and you're like, hey, Dr. Mindy, I hate edamame. I got you. I don't hate it, but some of you might. So other ideas is that you can do raw soybeans, edamame, tofu, soy nuts, soy milk, and tamari. Now, soy milk is I'm gonna throw it out there. I'm not a huge fan because it can be ultra processed. But if you were making your own soy milk, now it would be different. And then please keep in mind that soy is one of those crops that is heavily sprayed with pesticides. So let's try to make sure that we are getting organic soy always. Okay? So there you go. That's soy. Okay, number 2. I haven't even gotten to the other 2. Hopefully you're running out and grabbing yourself some tofu at this moment. So number 2, this is one I put on everything, and it is sesame seeds. So I sprinkle it on salads. I put it on meats. I put it on forbidden rice, happens to be one of my favorite, sweet potatoes. Put in the comments how many of you saw the cooking show that I did here on my channel with Leanne Rhymes, and we talk about sweet potatoes, the power of sweet potatoes. You can, if you put some sesame seeds on your sweet potato, you're getting a progesterone building food mixed with a phytoestrogen building food. Now, here's what I want you to know about sesame seeds, is that sesame seeds also increase estrogen levels. Several studies have shown that. And it does that because they're rich in what they call sesamin or sesamolin, which are just naturally occurring parts of the sesame seed that stimulate estrogen production. So again, let's put this in the context of everything that we're trying to do with our hormones. We put the patches on to increase estrogen. Why don't we use foods that nature provided to increase estrogen? Why don't we do them both? And sesame seeds you can buy. I got this one. I'm in Los Angeles right now, where they're one of the best grocery stores on the planet, Air One. I got it at Air One, but a lot of natural food stores will have it, which is a great resource to just sprinkle on top of everything. Okay, number 3. This is my favorite one, and I'm so excited to bring this to you because I've been diving into all the healing properties of food, specifically plants, and how they intersect with our hormones. And I recently came across a term that is not used enough, which is a phytoprogestin. A phytoprogestin is a food that increases progesterone, just like a phytoestrogen. So, and one of the best phytoprogestins is parsley. So, the funny thing about parsley, I'm a big salad fan. I make salads all the time for my family. And I'll just take like a head of parsley like this, and I'll just chop it up and just put it in with a whole bunch of other greens. I like to put it in with dandelion greens and spring mix. I put a little mint in there. I try to get as many greens as possible. And parsley is always one of my go-tos. And the interesting part about a fibery meal like that, like I just explained, like a salad like that, is it has that fiber in it that's going to help to balance blood sugar. But fiber is also important for feeding what we call your estrobolome. And your estrobolome is the part of the bacteria in your gut that break estrogen down. So when we look at something like parsley, it has a sort of a double whammy where it's increasing progesterone, it's feeding the microbiome that helps break estrogen down. And remember, estrogen and progesterone are always working in balance with each other. Now, put in that salad, I just thought of this, some soybeans, and now you've got a phytoestrogen and a phytoprogestin meal, and you're feeding the microbiome, and it's full of fiber, so you're regulating blood sugar. It's a win-win-win. So, but the interesting thing I want to point out on some of these studies about these progestins, and then I'll tell you some other really great progestins, is that they're finding, this is the one that I really think is interesting, is they're finding, it was a 2018 study, that there's a specific component of parsley and it's a highly scientific name, and it's called an apigenin. And an apigenin actually can activate your progesterone receptor sites. Okay, let me just put this in a lifestyle context for you. So one of the challenges as we've moved into these creams and these troches and the patches of the bioidenticals is there's a new concept that's coming out a lot about we're losing the sensitivity of our receptor sites because we're doing these things over and over again. But what this study showed, this 2018 study showed that it found that apigenins activate progesterone receptor sites, specifically the ones in the uterus, where increased progesterone has the biggest impact. Now, it's ironic that I'm doing this video on this day because I just had an amazing podcast interview with Dr. Amy Killen for the Resetter podcast. And we talked about the differences between progesterone cream and actually orally taking progesterone. And she said one of the reasons she's a fan of oral progesterone is because it has more of a protective uterine effect. Well, I literally just left that conversation. You can listen to it on the Resetter podcast. But now we're looking at the possibility of something like Parsley having this same protective effect on the uterus. So again, as we're going into this cultural chaotic moment where we're talking about all these creams and all these patches, please let's not lose sight that nature provided us a tremendous amount of resources to help balance our hormones. We can't just always turn to medication and say, boom, it's the medication that's going to heal me. I'm not saying don't do that. I like bringing that back in the conversation, but we cannot lose sight of the power of food. And when I break down foods like sesame seeds and soy and parsley, I really see that we can bring estrogen up and we can bring progesterone up and we can create this protective experience for our body through the power of food. We can do it in the eating window, and then we can go into our fasting window and we can heal ourselves there as well. Do you see how it all comes together? Please let me know in the comments if you're like, I'm getting it. I see it in a bigger picture. Because I'm not here on YouTube to just teach you one-offs. I'm here to get you to think in a broader way so you can use these concepts to really create a body that you love. And so many of us that have gone through that menopausal process have experienced a lot of moments of suffering. So let's bring some of these concepts together so we can see how they all link. Okay, last thing I want to tell you is that it's really interesting because there are a lot of phytoprogestin foods. Now, I brought you the sweet potato, that's my favorite, but here's some more: broccoli and kale, green tea, artichokes, and thyme. They're all really great phytoprogestins where they are stimulating progesterone production, plus they're increasing the activation of the receptor sites in the uterus. So there you go. I mean, how crazy is that? You walk into your grocery store, you're like, do I like parsley? Do I like soy? Where the next level thinking I want you to think about is, what does this food do to my hormones? And there are 3 of my favorites. So let me know if that helps. Put it in the comments. If you have any great hacks for how you cook this stuff, we're a community here, put it in the comments. But as always, don't give up on yourself. You are never out of answers. You are living in a body that always wants to regulate itself. And we've got to bring food back into the conversation to help hormonal regulation, just like we've been having an incredible conversation about the timing of food for hormonal regulation. Now let's marry the two. Let's talk about drinks that will help balance your hormones. And these you're gonna wanna know. This is one of those videos that is gonna blow your mind and is gonna make you stand up and cheer and be so happy. So in this video, we're going through some drinks, and it also leads to the conversation of even some foods that will help you balance hormones naturally. Are you ready? I feel like I need a drum roll. Okay, first drink that increases specifically progesterone. And I know when I say this drink, you're gonna be like, no, but I'm gonna show you the science on it so that you can kind of wrap your head around it. But the drink that can help increase progesterone is coffee. Okay. Now, how do we rectify this there has been some information out there that coffee actually destroys hormones. But the studies I want to point out to you right now are especially relate to the increase in progesterone to estrogen ratio. So let's talk about this for a moment. There was a 2009 study found that 1 to 2 cups of caffeinated, the caffeinated part was part of the key. We'll talk about that in a moment. But the 1 to 2 cups of caffeinated coffee a day increased the progesterone to estrogen ratio in premenopausal women. There also was a 2021 meta-analysis that found caffeinated coffee decreased the risk of estrogen receptor-driven breast cancers. So excessive estrogen is one of the more common causes of breast cancer. Now, before I move on to the next drink, let's start with this idea here for a moment. At 35, progesterone starts to go down. Around our 40s, estrogen goes on a wild ride. She's up, she's down. These two hormones, like I mentioned in Fast Like a Girl, is that they work together. They are like twin sisters with massively different personalities. But the deal is that if estrogen goes up, estrogen often can make progesterone go down and vice versa. So they're always kind of keeping each other in check. Anybody who's done bioidentical creams can tell you, like, you go in with estrogen and all of a sudden progesterone goes off and now you've got to use progesterone, which is why they often give you a cream with both. So the interesting thing about coffee is that it increased the estrogen to progesterone ratio in premenopausal women. Now, I don't know the age, they didn't say the age of these women, but it would be interesting that perhaps these women were somewhere around 35 or late 30s where that progesterone was coming down, but estrogen was still high. So when they drank coffee, it balanced that back out. Now, it also, even though it is decreasing the risk of cancer through the receptor sites for estrogen, I want to point out that not all coffees are the same. So just like I've done videos on carbs being different, fats being different, proteins being different, coffee, there is clean coffee and there's dirty coffee. Dirty coffee that you get at your franchised coffee store or coffee place, not good. It's filled with chemicals that actually are endocrine disruptors. But clean, organic, mold-free coffee, that's what this meta-analysis, this 2021 meta-analysis is saying, is that it decreased this risk of estrogen receptor-driven breast cancer. So clean coffee really, really makes a difference. Now, the other part of the coffee equation that I want to point out for women, especially when you're going through menopause or perimenopause, is that you may find as you go through the perimenopausal experience that you become more sensitive to coffee. Like all of a sudden it gives you the jitters, or it gives you a caffeinated high that won't let you sleep at night. One of the interesting things about coffee is that it has a half-life of 6 hours. So the half-life means it takes 6 hours from the time you take drink that cup of coffee for half of the coffee with the caffeine to exit and be cleared from your system. So it would take 12 hours for the whole cup, 1 cup, to be cleared. So if you're drinking a cup of coffee at noon, 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the chances of you being able to put your head on the pillow and go to sleep may be slim, especially if you're a perimenopausal woman who's already struggling to sleep. So when we look at statistics and bold statements like coffee helps increase progesterone, and it helps with this ratio, and it helps with these receptor sites so you minimize your chances of breast cancer, we need to tack on to that. It has to be clean. And your timing matters, because the last thing I want to do is put out a video that has a perimenopausal woman who already can't sleep drinking more coffee because she thinks she's raising progesterone, but now she can't sleep. So there is some nuance there that's really important. Okay, second drink. Now this one, I want you to pay real close attention as I say this. And it's soy milk. Now, like coffee, All soys are not, and soy milks are not made equal. So in my new book, Eat Like a Girl, which is a cookbook, there are some amazing recipes using soy milk. But you will see that I constantly say organic soy. And I really, in Eat Like a Girl, I really wanted to bring back soy because soy is an incredible phytoestrogen. So Chef Leslie, who did the plant-based recipes in my book, she gave us some really great soy recipes. And they have to be organic. So make sure when you go to buy soy milk, they're not filled with a bunch of ingredients that you don't know, and make sure that it is not a soy milk that is filled with pesticides. I can tell you that I don't do soy milk very often, but if I do, every once in a while, I always use the refrigerated kind, or better yet, make your own soy milk so that we make sure they don't have chemicals in them. Now, the interesting thing about soy is that it is so rich in phytoestrogens, and phytoestrogens, they actually will mimic estrogen. This is why I want to bring that back into the conversation, because as we go through perimenopause and menopause, so many of us are missing that estrogen. So they bring back this estrogen. So we don't want to do a ton of it, but we want to do some of it. And soy milk is one way to do it. When you heal a woman, you heal the world. So let's help support Vow by liberating these women, by supporting women, by giving the education that is needed to end the injustice of child marriage. So thank you, Vow, for what you're doing. Soy milk is especially good for us in perimenopause and menopause and postmenopausal years. But in a 2021 review, they found that women who added soy into their diets showed a significant decrease in menopause symptoms. This is why when I was researching for Eat Like a Girl, I really wanted to create some food resources for my perimenopause and menopausal women that would help bring those symptoms down. A symptom like hot flashes is a sign of very low estrogen. So what about if you're having hot flashes at night, what about a clean glass of warm soy milk before you go to bed? See how that works and if that will stop the night sweats and hot flashes from happening. So that's soy milk. Okay, number 3. This one used to be one of my favorite. And it's good. I've got a few more nuances on this, and that is kombucha. And kombucha is really great for overall hormonal balance because it is helping add in a good bacteria into your gut. Now remember, I've mentioned in both of these books, I have mentioned the estrobolome. I talk about, if you listen to my podcast, I talk about the estrobolome all the time. The estrobolome is a set of bacteria in your gut that are helping break down hormones, specifically estrogen. And so we want to have this very diverse microbiome so we can break these hormones down. In Eat Like a Girl, one of the things that I will show you is that there are 3 principles to eating like a girl that come into play when you put a meal together. And one of those principles is eat so that you can break down a hormone. And you break a hormone down by giving your gut what it wants so that this estrobolome can work really well. Well, the interesting thing about kombucha specifically is that this one, get ready. I bring you some interesting science, and sometimes I'm blown away myself. So a 2020 study showed that even birth control can be broken down and made less effective when you are supporting a healthy microbiome. So when you are adding in these probiotic-rich foods, such as kombucha, that over time, as you repair that microbiome, you might actually find that your birth control pill might need to be modified because it is affecting that birth control and making it less effective. Interesting. It would be a really interesting discussion to have with your OB who put you on the birth control. Okay, second thing that I want to point out is there was a 2021 review that found that gut imbalances can cause PCOS endometriosis, irregular periods, increased risk for during pregnancy because of this. If we don't have that microbiome to be able to manage estrogen, it could end up being a problem. And so what this 2021 review found that there is a connection between those of you that have PCOS, endometriosis, and irregular periods. You want to bring that balance back. So, kombucha is incredible probiotic. It's when I look at the probiotic capabilities of foods, kombucha is light. It's like 5 billion CFUs CFUs is the measurement we use for good probiotics. I like also, if you're not a kombucha fan or you don't want to buy kombucha, I also like raw kefir. Raw kefir and raw kefir milk has trillions of good bacteria in it. And those bacteria will support this great hormonal health. In Eat Like a Girl, we've got a lot of recipes for a lot of probiotic-rich drinks and yogurts and things like that. That was a big cornerstone of this book, a lot of pickling. I really asked both chefs to give me a lot of fermented foods, and they did. So you will find a ton in there if you like to cook from home. I know there are supermarkets like those of you that are blessed to live in Los Angeles, and you can go to Air One. There's an amazing market that has so many fermented drinks, fermented coconut drinks, fermented raw kefir water you can find, and that can be incredible for the gut microbiome in helping you support great hormonal health. So whatever path you take, what I hope you walk away from with this video is understanding that if your hormones are off, whether it's because of menopause or PCOS or you're struggling to get pregnant, we can't leave your gut microbiome out of the picture. We need to be able to support your gut microbiome in a healthy way, and these fermented drinks like kombucha and raw kefir will do that. We also need, in many of these cases, to bring estrogen up. So we got to look at these phytoestrogens, and soy milk is there. And then we have to look at the progesterone estrogen balance, and we now know that we can use coffee to be able to do that. So really interesting when you break it down into a food lens. Remember, with Fast Like a Girl, I taught you how we look at fasting, which is the absence of food through a hormonal lens. And Eat Like a Girl, I'm really starting this conversation with you about how do we use food as hormonal medicine. We are living in a time where a lot of you are dipping into the bioidenticals. We're living in a time where the 20 and 30-year-olds don't have a cycle anymore. And we don't need to make this complicated. We can go back to the simplicity of metabolic switching using these two principles and using food as hormonal medicine. That is my message to you today. So let me know if that's helpful. If you've had good results with any of these, if you have a great fermented drink recipe, please put it in. We're in the comments. We are a community here. I read your comments. I love the support you give each other. I love the support you give me. Thank you. Appreciate that. And we're all in this together, because when you get healthy, it affects everyone around you. So healthy people tend to be very happy people. So let's keep every one of us healthy, because the world needs more happiness, especially in this moment in time. So let's talk about 3 of the most powerful herbs for accelerating weight loss. I know so many of you who come to my channel, you're looking to build a fasting lifestyle that accelerates the weight loss process. And so many of you have done an incredible job. I want to take this conversation to a new level, which is, well, what is there potentially that we can use to speed up the weight loss process that is based off of science? And some of these things we might actually even be able to use in our fasting window. So we're going to dive in to 3 of the most powerful ones. I'm going to show you how you can effortlessly use them, and I'll talk about which ones can go in your fasting window. Are you ready? Here we go. Number 1, some of these are really unusual that you may or may not know. But number 1 is fenugreek for appetite control. So fenugreek actually comes in a seed. You can sometimes find it ground up in a powder. I found it in a tea. And I think the tea is really exciting because you could drink this in your fasting window. So if you think about it in your fasting window, those of you that are fasting and you're finding that you're getting hungry more often, maybe putting some fenugreek tea actually in the fasting window will kill that hunger. Now, the other fun part about fenugreek is it doesn't just stop with, the benefits don't stop with just hunger, but there also was another really interesting study that people who took fenugreek extract spontaneously had 13% fewer calories throughout the day. So we are definitely seeing the potential of fenugreek being that tea that you could sip on throughout your fasting window that is not only going to help with appetite suppression, but then maybe even when you go into your eating window and you go into food again, there's a possibility that you're going to consume less calories. That would be really interesting for those of you that tend to boomerang into your eating window. What if you drank fenugreek tea in your fasting window? Would it affect how you eat in your eating window? Okay, number 2 is chili peppers for burning fat. So we've got the fenugreek for controlling appetite, and we've got the chili peppers for burning fat. Now, some of you may already know this, that it's the capsaicin in the actual chili pepper that increases something called thermogenesis. And thermogenesis is where your body heats itself up and in that process, starts to burn more fat. And what they found about chili peppers that was so interesting was that people who had hot chilies, the hotter the better, by the way. So if you can handle spicy, amazing. But people that had very hot peppers had showed that they burned 7 to 10% more calories than people throughout the day than people who didn't. We also are seeing that with chili peppers, that it actually suppresses your hunger hormone. We call it ghrelin, and it is a hormone that when it spikes, you're hungry. But when you're including chili peppers, especially the hot ones with a lot of capsaicin in it, you are not only raising that temperature of your body, burning more fat, but that you're decreasing this hunger hormone, that it allows you to not go in too deeply into the food that might be the ones that are causing you to gain weight. We've got the fenugreek for a possibility for suppressing appetite. We're burning fat with the capsaicin in the chili peppers. By the way, things like cayenne pepper also works. So you can find lots of different versions of pepper. The trick is really the hotter, the better. Okay, number 3 is one that I've used in my clinic for years, and it's ashwagandha. So ashwagandha is an incredible herb because it helps to regulate what we call your HPA axis. The HPA axis is how your adrenals and your brain communicate with each other. So the interesting thing about ashwagandha, and by the way, I take it in a supplement form. So you could do it. I mean, that's usually, you might find it in tea. I have found it in tea before, but I also like to take it in supplements. And when stress goes up, I take it on a regular basis. But here's a scenario I want to run for you, and this might be your scenario. So let's say life has been incredibly stressful for you, and you're trying to learn this metabolic switch. You're trying to learn how to go into this fasting lifestyle and then how to eat really healthy foods. But your hunger, every time you go back into food, you're just so hungry, and you can't really fast very long because you seem to get hypoglycemic or your energy tanks. So then we look at all of these in conjunction with each other. What if during your fasting window, you do some fenugreek tea, so you're suppressing your appetite? You could also, in your fasting window, do some of these stress relieving supplements like ashwagandha that will calm cortisol and help your body balance cortisol better. And then when you go into food, you decide you're going to go in with the hot peppers so that you can increase your fat burning capability. Now we're coming at this idea of weight loss from a lot of different angles. And one of the things that I hear so much from so many of you is that you need more tools, that sometimes you build these fasting lifestyles and maybe you drop 10 pounds, but you have, 100 pounds to go.
Or sometimes you're doing everything right that I'm telling you, but your body's just not releasing weight. Well, we can lean into the medicinal quality of herbs to be able to help us, support us in this system. So we start to use ashwagandha to be able to support the adrenals, so our body knows it's safe to release fat. We start to use fenugreek to control our appetite, so when we go back into food, we're not famished and just eating everything. And then we accelerate the fat burning capabilities of our body by when we eat, we put in these hot peppers. So it's a multi-pronged approach that I'm going into more detail with you all. I think you'll find it that some of these little hacks are going to be easier, are going to be key for you to be able to get that accelerated weight loss. But what's not going to work, and I really want to point this out, is that a video like this, it would be very easy to walk away and be like, well, I just need to eat more peppers and drink more fenugreek tea and I'm going to lose weight. No, doesn't work like that. What I want you to know is that these three things are brilliantly designed to fit into a fasting lifestyle. And if you do these three things along with all the metabolic switching that I've taught you here on this channel, now we're creating this comprehensive approach to your body releasing.
Dr. Mindy here, and on this video, I'm going to expand on this idea around what the heck do we do with belly fat. So I specifically want to dive into food. I know I talk a lot about fasting, but it's time for us to talk about foods and how to pair those fasts with really good foods that will help you get rid of the belly fat. And if you are new to my channel, I just want to say welcome. I'm a woman on a mission to get everybody healthy. But specifically, I want to give you some really free and easy tools that you can do now. So hit the subscribe button and the notification bell, and let's dive in. Let's address belly fat. So happy that you're here. Okay, so belly fat. This is like a really common question that we get a lot from you guys. And I really want to dial it in and give you some specific things that you can apply today. But before I do that, I really want to explain, like, what is fat? Why does it accumulate at the belly? Why do we accumulate fat in general? And then I'm going to go into 3 specific food groups that you've got to incorporate and understand why you're incorporating them so we can finally get rid of this belly fat. So here's the first concept. I really cannot say this enough that I want us to stop villainizing fat. Because there is a reason that your body is accumulating fat, and it's because it needs a storage spot for the excess. So the excess hormones, the excess toxins, the excess glucose. So when your body accumulates fat around parts of that you don't like, especially the belly, we have to stop and remember that the body is giving us a message. So how do we go after that excess? And how do we stop villainizing fat? That's another really key point. Stop looking at yourself in the mirror and telling yourself horrible things when your body was trying to save your freaking life. So let's have more of an appreciation of like, wow, the body's doing the right thing at the right time. Thank you, body. Now I want to unwind that and make sure you don't have to store fat anymore. So there are 3 things I want you to think about. The first is that we've got to look at what the major organ that helps us detoxify. Because if we are storing extra toxins and fat, let's dive into the most important organ in the body for detoxification, and that's the liver. Now, when we look at the liver, we have a very specific category of foods the liver needs you to feed it so that it can do its detoxification properly. And we call those bitter foods. And this always kind of leaves people in this quandary of like, well, what is a bitter food? So I'm going to give you some of my favorite. And this is literally my most favorite. I've eaten this a couple times this week, and it is radicchio. And I actually will use radicchio to wrap it around meat. So I'll put a burger in it. It becomes my bun for on the days I'm going low carb. I'll wrap it around some turkey slices with some grass-fed cheese and eat it like a little wrap. It is so firm that it actually works a lot like bread, and the liver loves it. So radicchio is a phenomenal option. The other option, and I put this in my salads all the time, actually did this last night, is dandelion greens. You've probably heard of dandelion green tea. I like to just get the fiber itself, so I like to go to the actual dandelion green itself. And what I'll do, for those of you who are like, well, what do I do with a dandelion green, is that I actually will take the green and I will cut it up. I'll take some scissors or I'll chop it with a knife and I'll cut it up and put it in a mixed salad. So last night, we actually had a mixed green salad with dandelion greens, radicchio, and some other mixed greens. I threw some mint into it. We had a grass-fed steak and a sweet potato, and it was like perfection on a plate. But it really was there was a healing aspect to that meal other than a taste aspect, and dandelion greens were a really important part of that to help support liver health. Outside of things like radicchio and dandelion greens, my next favorite bitter food is ginger. I am a huge fan of fresh pressed ginger. I have been known to walk into a health store and just grab one of those ginger shots and drink it. You can press it yourself. You can put this in tea. You can cut it up and put it in a smoothie. That would be a beautiful way to do it, but it's great support for the liver. Outside of that, we've got lemons are also really great. I mean, we can even look at things like coffee, where coffee is a bitter. If you're doing it clean coffee, that can be supportive of the liver. I mean, I've talked a lot on this channel about the importance of coffee enemas. Well, what does coffee do? Coffee dilates. And so when we're looking to open up the liver so it can get all those toxins out and it doesn't forward it on to the belly to store it as fat, then we want to lean into, some clean coffee. This is not your coffee you go get at your coffee shop unless it's an organic one. This is organic, without chemicals, without mold. That's the kind of coffee you want. I've got a bunch on my website if you want to go look at my favorite. And then the other one that I recently have been dabbling with, I know we got a lot of chefs here on this channel, is something like cranberries. But this isn't like cranberry juice or a dried cranberry where we add sugar to it. This is like a cranberry that you, again, would take an organic cranberry, throw it into a smoothie. It's going to be a little tart, but it's also going to be very supportive of the liver. So those are some of my favorites that I've used personally for bitter foods. But overall, to support the liver and reduce the belly fat, we want the bitter foods. Second concept, and this one's really important for you to get. So what controls blood sugar is our microbiome. So we need to feed the microbes in our gut and make sure we have a really diverse set of microbes so that we can regulate blood sugar. If we've been on antibiotics for a long time, if you've been on decades of birth control, if you've had a lot of steroid use, what you're going to see, and you've been under a lot of stress, what you're going to see is your microbiome is deficient of a good variety of microbes. And you may find that your blood sugar is higher than you want it to be. When I'm working with a patient one-on-one, when I can't get blood sugar down, I go to the liver and I go to the gut to be able to look at how do we regulate blood sugar from that angle as opposed to just looking at fasting, which I love, of course, and looking at supplementation. I know a lot of you have asked me about like cinnamon and things like that. But what I want you to do is start to put some of these hacks I'm giving you into a daily regime that works really well. So when we go to the gut, I have some very clear, tried and true ones. The first is bone broth. Now, I want to explain why bone broth works so well. It has something called glycine in it, and glycine will heal the inner lining of your gut. And it will prevent, it can actually stop a leaky gut. So one of my favorite gut hacks is to fast up to 24 hours. I wrote about that in Fast Like a Girl, and then break your fast with bone broth. Now we've actually started to heal the gut in one day. It only takes, by the way, 3 days of consistent, good eating, good fasting to change that microbiome. So can you add more bone broth in, especially when you go to break your fast? Second piece is that we've got to look at something, well, I'll go here for next. We've got to look at some of the probiotic foods that we want to add in. So raw kefir is one of my favorite because it has trillions of good bacteria. I love Raw Farm. I have no financial ties to them. I just love them as humans, and they're on a mission to try to change the microbiome of the world through raw dairy. And this one has turmeric in it. It has some cinnamon, so it can help with that blood sugar coming down. but it's also got trillions of bacteria, more powerful than even a probiotic. I break my fast often with this. And then the last part of the microbiome, especially for women, that I want to talk about is the power of the estrobolome. Now, this is a set of bacteria in your gut that break estrogen down. If we go back to what I said in the beginning of this video, the reason that we accumulate fat, especially around the belly, is because of excess. So one of those excesses is estrogen. You've got to have a good microbiome to break estrogen down. Otherwise, your body stores it as fat, especially belly fat. So are you eating enough green leafy vegetables? So parsley is always in my refrigerator. I cut this up and put it in salads almost every day. Outside of that, I look to get I like to get anywhere between 4 and 8 cups of green leafy vegetables a day. When I make a salad, I put mixed greens in it. I put parsley, I put mint, I put radicchio, I put dandelion greens. So I try to use a salad as my tool, my healing tool, to be able to support my liver and my microbiome. That combination now has my liver detoxifying the bad estrogens, and it has me breaking those bad estrogens down and the good estrogens down so the good can be used and the bad can go away. This is the level of nuance that we need to start talking about when we're looking at something as simple as belly fat. We've got to break down how you can get rid of that and understand it from a deeper level, because your body is always doing the right thing at the right time. Last thing I want to tell you, when we look at blood sugar, we want to look at stability. And if your blood sugar is doing this all day long, what happens is in those peaks of glucose, you're also getting a peak of insulin. And as many people are moving more towards insulin resistance, what happens is that we're starting to see that the body doesn't know how to even stabilize something as simple as a sweet potato, my favorite carbohydrate on the planet. So putting our carbs with a fat slows down the spike of blood sugar, which is a brilliant thing. So grass-fed butter goes on everything I can possibly put on it. I also add avocado to almost everything that I eat. The salad I talked about that I made last night had a whole avocado in it. Many of you have commented on the recipe in Fast Like a Girl where I show you how to break your fast with avocado and sauerkraut. But when you add a fat into every single meal, you are stabilizing your blood sugar. When you stabilize your blood sugar, you're not getting these big spikes and these big crashes. When you don't have the big spike, there's no glucose to store. There's nothing to store. There's no insulin to store. When you're cleaning up the liver, the liver's detoxifying in a normal, healthy way. There's nothing to store. When we start to add in some really smart microbiome repair foods, like I spoke of, you're regulating your blood sugar, and now you don't have that glucose and insulin at high levels. So there's nothing to store. That's the trick. Like, I want you to see this so clearly, that the art to losing weight exists in fasting and food. Yes, movement's going to help. I love movement. You won't ever hear me say don't exercise, don't move. But what I want you to understand is stop saying mean things to yourself. Stop villainizing the fat. It just needs you to treat it a different way. And this is how it wants you to eat. So as always, I hope that helps. And please put in the notes, because we are a community here on YouTube, put in the comments what you notice with the different length fasts and then adding some of the foods back in, what you notice, so that we can start to see that is of critical essence for you. Now, if you want to go into more detail with this, come join me in my Resetter Academy. This is where we're taking the people in our academy and we're helping them customize nutrition and fasting for their own benefit. I love inspiring you guys here on YouTube, but if you need more help, we have created that membership group for you. But as always, you can't give up on yourself. Stop shaming yourself. Stop telling yourself horrible things. Your body is perfect. It is working in perfection. It just needs you to have the owner's manual, and I'm trying to give you the owner's manual. Okay, how many people want to burn fat? right? Like, I feel like everybody that watches my videos is like, help me burn fat, help me burn fat. So how many people want to burn fat while drinking something amazing? Yeah, me too. So on this video, here's what we're going to do. For starters, this is Chef Leslie, in case you're wondering who this person is standing next to me. She is one of the chefs that was participated in Eat Like a Girl that is now ready for order. So you will put a link here for you all to order this. And we're going to actually show one of her really quick and easy recipes that you called a fat bomb smoothie.
It is a fat bomb.
Yeah, and it's really good. It tastes good. It's easy to make. And what I love about it is the ingredients literally help you burn fat and help you balance hormones. So I want to start off with the ingredients because one of the ingredients in there I don't think gets enough attention, and it should, which is cacao.
Yes.
Okay, so what do we need to know about cacao through your lens? And then I want to talk to you about what science I found on cacao.
I like a raw cacao, and the darker the better. The darker in color, the richer it is.
Okay.
And the more antioxidants and I believe flavonoids are in cacao as well, right? And so just dark, rich, dark chocolate is what you're looking for.
Okay. And this is organic. So that's the other thing we don't want. Remember, pesticides is an endocrine disruptor. So that would make this not a hormone balancing meal. But so now sometimes I can't see the color in the tin at the store.
Yeah, so it's really just about knowing your brands and knowing the quality. Message me and I'll send you my favorite brands.
So we'll put the links to Chef Leslie's socials in here because she is a world of information that you're going to want to follow. But let me talk to you about cacao because I found some really interesting things. So for starters, something that you and I briefly talked about, but maybe you all haven't heard, which is one of the big pieces of Eat Like a Girl was that I wanted to create a list of nutrients that we all need to eat on a regular basis to help us make hormones. So it's not like your body your body early in your younger years makes hormones very easily, but as you get older, doesn't make hormones as easy, and that's because of these key 24 nutrients. So when I looked at cacao, one of the biggest things, now this totally trips me out, is that one of the biggest things is that it has magnesium in it, which you need to make both estrogen and progesterone. You also need it for a good night's sleep.
You need it for sleep, you need it for digestion. I mean, there's so many things that magnesium does.
So the other thing, so it's rich in magnesium, it's rich in flavonoids. So flavonoids are really good for feeding that microbiome. So when we look at something like estrogen, you need to have those nutrients to make estrogen, but then you need to feed the microbiome to break estrogen down. So it accomplishes that, but it didn't stop there. So endorphins. I mean, how many?
Go figure, chocolate makes you happy.
Right, put in the comments, like when you eat chocolate, aren't you happy? I actually found a really interesting study that showed that a little bit of chocolate every day actually reduced anxiety when done over a consistent period of time.
Well, I eat chocolate on a regular basis.
I do too.
I don't have a whole lot of anxiety.
Exactly. Okay, but the research I found was it boosts serotonin. And this is interesting because as a woman goes through her menopausal years, specifically perimenopause, she loses her estrogen, and estrogen stimulated serotonin. So she can lose serotonin as well. So why don't we eat more cacao? Okay, the fun doesn't stop there.
P.S. though, I will say, we're talking about cacao. We're not talking about milk chocolate bars.
Yes, good point.
Yes.
Like really rich organic cacao. The study I saw on chocolate was 74% dark chocolate. So you really want that.
More.
It isn't milk chocolate. So we're just so we're clear.
But they do make chocolate bars now with coconut milk instead of milk chocolate. So it's like a milk chocolate, but made with whole fat coconut milk. And so you still get that fatty, milky taste, but it is much better for you.
Oh, interesting. Okay. The other thing about cacao is that it supports thyroid function. It improves libido, which is both are hormonal messes. If you're having low thyroid or your libido is down, that's a hormone imbalance. It's rich in iron. So iron's really interesting because iron is one of those things that when you're losing energy, you need more iron. But women going through perimenopause, if they are low in progesterone, when they actually bleed, it's like they hemorrhage.
Oh.
Like clots, blood comes out a ton. And so you lose your iron much more quickly. So, and the beautiful thing about cacao is you're not only increasing iron, but you're supporting good progesterone production. So it kind of takes both angles. And then the last thing I love about cacao is its ability to support your adrenal health. So in a world where there are too many of us that have dysregulated and let our cortisol levels skyrocket and our poor adrenals are struggling, cacao could be the answer. So I don't know if that's why you put it in this fat bomb smoothie, but I really love it for
all of those reasons,
right.
And because it tastes amazing, and because why not?
Yeah.
It's chocolate. Who doesn't love a chocolate smoothie?
Right. So the last thing I want to say before I let Chef Leslie show us how to make this is avocado. And in the other videos we've done together, so make sure you watch those, we've come to the conclusion that there's like 10 superfoods that just deserve to be put in the Hall of Fame. And avocado is one of them. So she's going to show you how to find an avocado when you're at the market here in a moment. But what I want to point out, this one just blows me away, is that avocado supports about 4-ish key nutrients. So vitamin C, vitamin E, vitamin K, and the B vitamins. So we'll put there's lots of Bs. But do you know that those are the 4 nutrients that women lose when they've been on the birth control pill?
I did not know that.
For years after years after years. I put it in the book, all about what nutrients you lose when you've been on the birth control pill forever. And now adding an avocado in every day is going to help to bring your antioxidant load back to what it should be. So with that in mind, how do I pick an avocado?
Well, a couple things. This is a Haas avocado. It has a really, really nice, rough, kind of dinosaur egg texture. Not that we hang out with dinosaur eggs all the time. I know they are, but it kind of looks like one. And the next is you want to feel it. And there's a really easy trick that I really love. So make a fist with your hand. Okay, well, you've got a ring on.
Okay,
so,
let's do it.
Okay, that one. All right, so this part of your hand, the avocado is not ripe. It's too hard, which is fine because it can ripen at home. This part is too squishy. It's too soft. But this part is exactly what you're looking for. Just a nice little push. So when you make your fist, you can feel that it dents in a little bit, but it doesn't like sink in like it does over here. So that's a little tip. And then the other one is to pick off the stem off the top. If you find one that feels good, pick off the top. And if it's bright green inside like this, it's good to go and it'll be green all the way through. If you pick this off and it's brown and gray or even has a little bit of mold growing on there, it's going to be bad all the way through. And so it goes.
And is there a way, like, is it true if I have an unripe avocado and I put it next to bananas, it'll ripen quicker? Mm-hmm. Okay.
And you can also put it in a brown paper bag and seal it up, and those will make it ripen faster as well.
And then we talked on another video about how you slow down the ripening, which you want to share that?
You just slow it down or stop it completely. Because once you get a nice ripe avocado and you can't use it right then, you can throw the whole thing in the freezer. Don't have to put it in a bag, nothing. Throw the whole thing in the freezer. Bring it back to room temperature. Use it like any way you would normally use an avocado.
Yeah,
and if you've cut it in half already and you've got a half that's going to go bad and you're not going to use the half, then I chop it up, put it in a bag, throw it in the freezer, and then I use that in my smoothies.
And it's just like frozen berries.
Yeah, you can use it. In this recipe, we use ice cubes, but you could use frozen avocado and not have to put the ice cubes in it because the ice does water it down a little bit, but also provides hydration.
Do you like your smoothies cold? Like or room temperature, does it matter?
It depends on the flavor of the smoothie to me. I like them a little chilled. I never like a warm smoothie because a warm smoothie is basically just soup.
It's not heated up.
Yeah.
It's soup not heated up, which is no fun unless it's gazpacho. Which there is a recipe.
There is a recipe. You told me that was your favorite thing, and so I put it in
there. But we like gazpacho chilled, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
But I could take it room temperature too.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So with that in mind, how do we put this smoothie together?
Okay, it's easy peasy. It is a can of full fat coconut milk.
Amazing.
Which is going to scare a lot of people at the amount of fat in this, but why don't you tell them why it's so awesome that there's so much fat in here?
Remember, just like carbohydrates aren't all made equal, fat is not all made equal. And when I went to research the front part of this book, we call it the front matter, I really dove into these key 24 nutrients, and one of the major things you need to be able to make hormones is you need omega-3 fatty acids, which coconut milk has a ton of, and you're going to see she uses almond butter, also has a ton of these omega-3 fatty acids. The other thing, those of you that are struggling in your fasting window, where you're like, oh, once I get into there, my blood sugar is off quite a bit. Actually, when you are eating food, you eat a lot of fat-rich food, it really stabilizes your blood sugar.
Yes.
So we need it, and then of course we need it for brain health. I mean, there's so many reasons you need fat, and not to be scared of it. But I'm not talking canola oil. I'm not talking, vegetable oil, the toxic inflammatory fats. Coconut milk and avocado and almond butter are all healthy fats, so which is really important.
Okay, so we've got the can of coconut milk in there. We're going to put a whole avocado in there. We're going to put almond butter, which I love the flavor of almond butter.
I do too. Now, for me, when I'm picking almond butter out of the supermarket, I like to get raw, organic almond butter, because anytime you get a nut raw, it comes with enzymes, and those enzymes help to break down that nut. So, and it's, again, nut butters are a great prebiotic for the gut. They help with facilitating better microbiome in there.
Yeah.
But like once you pasteurize them, they're dead food.
It's dead.
It's just not, it doesn't have that liveness that you talk about. So.
And making almond butter and peanut butters and any nut butter is actually really easy. And so maybe we should do a whole video on how to do that
can you talk about what you do with your nuts at night?
Yeah, I like putting whole nuts into my smoothies in the morning, and so at night I get a glass. I fill it with water, and I throw in my 6 to 8 nuts that I'm going to use in my smoothie the next morning, and just let them soak, and that helps sprout them. Why don't you talk about what sprouted
so sprouting
is? And I'm going to
again,
add our cacao.
Okay, sprouting again is where we are amplifying the healing power of that nut by enzymes primarily. You're also increasing the prebiotic fibers, and you're making it easier for your gut to be able to digest it. So when people are like, oh, I can't have nuts, you might be able to have sprouted.
You might be able to have sprouted.
Yeah.
So okay, I am going to add a little bit of ice cube in there. I'm going to pop the lid. And then we're going to do the Leslie challenge. Which is, so while the blender's going, I like to work out at odd places. So like I'll do lunges and squats while I'm doing my hair. And while the blender's going, I like to do push-ups.
Oh my God, I love this. The Leslie challenge.
Yes.
Okay, you can do this while you're watching the video if you want, if you have a countertop near you.
All right, ready?
Yep. I'm already too short. Nice.
Okay, let's just do them all.
Oh my God, how long does this go for?
I think we're done.
Okay. Whew.
Well, we'll see if we're done. Okay, Mason, we're done. Whew.
I just did push-ups yesterday, so that was a little bit.
I did too.
That was a little bit of tinge.
I love it. All right, so here you go.
Nice.
Here I go.
So this would be a really interesting breakfast meal, because how many of you boomerang back into your eating window? This has so much fat in it that it'll kill hunger. So
yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers, friend.
Yay. The cacao is really good.
Right.
It's really good. Would you add berries or anything to it if you wanted?
You could. Berries don't contain any fat. Every ingredient in this, except for the cacao. Cacao doesn't have very much fat in it.
So that's why we called it Fat Bomb.
Yes, but you could absolutely add date to this. You could add banana to this if you're into that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a pure.
But it is definitely, because it's so rich in fat. And I had to ask Chef Leslie to do a Fat Bomb recipe, because so many of you, when you open up your eating window, you just start eating. And if you could actually start with a cup of this, you would get all the wonderful qualities that we talked about, but it would stabilize your blood sugar. What fat will do is it goes up into the brain and kills the hunger hormone. So it's like why we put MCT oil in our coffee in the morning is we're trying to kill hunger so we can stretch out that fast. But as we switch back into the sugar burner system, and we did, by the way, a whole bunch of breakfast menu recipes in here, which most of them were yours.
They were so exciting.
Really exciting. So, but this would be incredible for breaking a fast. And it's so easy. And then you could go into another form of a meal if you wanted a salad or if, whatever you wanted to do. But this is really good. Oh. There you go, the Fat Bomb smoothie. And most of all, what I want you to understand is that from a video like this is food is hormonal medicine. So when you guys, so many of you are trying to struggle, you're struggling with perimenopause and postmenopause, and there's a real incredible cultural conversation going on right now, but HRT, it feels like everybody's like, give me a patch, give me some cream. That does not excuse you from a lifestyle. And so this kind of recipe brings your lifestyle into a match with where you are hormonally. And if you've chosen to go the route of HRT, it can really help benefit that. So there you go. And by the way, I do have to throw one more thing in. What do you think of Ozempic?
Well, I think I should have another.
I'm just asking.
I think for the people that truly, truly need it in their life and that are in that extreme case, it's excellent. But in my world and the way that I teach and the way that I like to live and share is that you are capable of anything.
Yep.
Of anything.
Thank you.
And it's turning your whole life around. Ozempic just numbs your hunger. It doesn't tell you to eat the healthy food.
That's right.
So even if you're just eating junk food, but you're just eating a little bit of it and you lose the weight, you still aren't fixing the problem of not getting all the nutrients that you need in your body.
Yeah, and I think that's a big thing is that when I look at the benefits, and I've done this for you all on many, many different videos, we've been talking about Ozempic, but what you're trying to do is kill hunger.
Yeah.
And so, but the challenge with that is you kill hunger too much, you're now not getting those key 24 in.
Yes.
So you can kill hunger by a fat bomb smoothie, and all of a sudden it's filled you up, you don't have the hunger hormone. So really play with recipes like that. Play with concepts like the coconut milk and the avocado and the almond butter as really ways of stopping hunger. And then they move you over into that fasted state better, and so now you're burning fat more efficiently and you're balancing hormones. I just am such a fan of food.
Me too.
As being hormonal medicine.
Me too.
It really, truly is. So there you go.
Cheers.
Okay, in this video, we got to talk about the number one big food lie. And it's really important because so many people are literally dying at the hands of big food. So in this video, I want to talk about this lie, and I want to talk about how you can move around it. What's the bypass for this lie? So here we go. First thing I want you to know is that there's a concept out there that's being talked a lot about. Maybe you've heard it, maybe you haven't, and it's called big food. Big food is basically the machine that is making food. And this machine of companies that are making food are interested in one thing: profits. And many of the ways in which they're making food right now are hijacking your taste buds and are pouring chemicals into your system in a way that is not only causing you to gain weight, but is causing you to build chronic disease. It is, I think about this a lot. Like, we talk about like how horrible the pandemic was and how many lives were lost, and yes, like the lives lost was horrible and no disrespect, but there are lives every day being lost, more lives that are being lost to chronic disease, and it has to do with big food. So the biggest lie that we've got around big food is that all food is safe. It is not. When you walk into your grocery store, the food in your grocery store, there is a good chance that a large part of that is not safe. Every single health challenge you have, every single challenge dropping weight, every bit of depression and anxiety could be coming from these toxic chemicals that are being poured into food, and nobody is regulating these people. It is the biggest criminal act on the planet right now, and I'm upset about it. So here's what you need to know to be able to overturn this lie. The first thing you have to realize is when you walk into your supermarket, there's a good chance that there's a handful of food in there that is not safe. So what you can do is you can start to walk around the outside of the supermarket. So buy perishable food. So when we look at food from a shelf life perspective, what we do is a really good question to ask yourself is if that food can stay on the shelf for months and months and months in the supermarket, it probably has chemicals in it that is making it do that, and those chemicals are going to kill you. And those chemicals have two major problems with them. One is something called an obesogen. I wrote all about obesogens in Eat Like a Girl. I have charts. I explain what they do. I'm going to give you a little snippet of what they do here. But the main thing they do is that they hijack your stem cells. And they tell your stem cells to make fat cells. So think about this for a moment. We have a culture right now that is talking about how we have obesity problem in children. Why do we have an obesity problem in children? Are these children all undisciplined? Are they just eating too much food, too many calories? No. The answer is no. What's happened is these obesogens have been poured into the food system. Pesticides are one of them. Monosodium glutamate is another one. Things like NutraSweet, another one. These chemicals, again, the list is in here. These chemicals, what they're doing is that they are being put in your food, and then when the mother eats them, they go into the baby, and then the baby's stem cells are now reprogrammed to make fat cells. And it's the stem cells that were supposed to make bone cells actually start to make fat cells. And then we look at our kids and we're like, oh my God, my 5-year-old's overweight. My 10-year-old's overweight. And now we start looking at giving them Ozempic. This is completely wrong. So we've got to understand that chemicals in our food are making us overweight, and they fall under the category of obesogens. You can go and Google search right now and find a long list of obesogens. You're also putting obesogens on your skin, they're on your kitchenware, they're everywhere. So we want to get obesogens out. The other thing that these chemicals in our food are doing is that they are disrupting our hormones. So what's happening is we're ending up with too much estrogen in many cases. It's called estrogen dominance. And the body doesn't know what to do with estrogen dominance, so it stores all this extra synthetic estrogen in fat tissue. And so it's storing it, and this is why, again, we have such an obesity problem. This is why breast cancer rates and a lot of fat in our breasts. This is all where the body is storing these toxic chemicals that are in our food. It's criminal. So we have to look at weight loss differently. We have to look at the foods we choose differently, and we have to look at ourselves differently, because we start, especially as women, we start beating ourselves up, saying that it's our problem that we've gained weight, but we don't realize that we walked into the grocery store thinking everything was safe. I always tell this story that I used to, my clinic was built around helping people build healthy lifestyles, and a lot of the patients I worked with were patients who had been given a cancer diagnosis. And one patient in particular, her name was Lanny. When I started to explain the concept I just explained to you, to her, I actually literally took her to a grocery store, and I was showing her how to read a label and what she could do to help create a life that stopped building cancer. And she looked at me and she was like, are you telling me that the food in here, every food in here is not safe, and the name of the store is Safeway? And I was like, yeah, that's what I'm telling you. And it's what I'm telling you. It's like we have to stop looking at all food as safe. Some food is safe and it will build health, and other food is poison and it will build disease. I did a whole Diary of the CEO podcast on this. I'll put that link there. You can go watch it. So let's realize the damage that the food industry is doing to us. The other thing I just want to say is they create food that hijacks our taste buds and all of a sudden makes us addicted to it. It's a great profit model. So if you're a business person, that makes sense. But if you're trying to keep somebody healthy, it makes no sense. Okay, so what can we start to do knowing this? And here's how let me just break it down, make it really easy for you. So first is let's start looking at the shelf life of a product. How long is the shelf life gonna last? Like if you put a piece of fruit out on your shelf, on your countertop or even in your refrigerator, it's going to last a couple days and then it's going to rot. Yeah, because it's a real food. So if it has a long shelf life, read the ingredients, understand what chemicals are in there, because many of the chemicals in there are extending the shelf life, which leads me to my second thing. Second thing is learn to read an ingredient label. It's not hard. It's complicated, but you can make it simple. And here's how you make it simple. Just pick up anything and read those ingredients and then ask yourself, do I know what these are? Can I respond to this? I did this for years with my nephew. He would always come to me say, is this food safe? Is this food healthy? And I'd always say, read me the ingredients. And when he would get to the third or fourth ingredient and he couldn't read it, he couldn't pronounce it, I'd say, go look it up. And when he started looking it up, this is a great thing to do. If you're any teachers out there, if there's any parents that want to show their kids, have them literally read out loud to you an ingredient label. And if they can't read a word, send them to the computer and have them Google it and then see what it says. Because you will find that there are many, many of these chemicals that are allowed in food. In America, they fall under the category of GRAS, generally recognized as safe. You can put a little bit of a chemical in that is generally recognized as safe. We have an innocent until proven guilty philosophy around food and ingredients. So look at the shelf life. Ask if it has a shelf life. Second one is look at the ingredient list and learn to read it and say, is there real food in it? Okay, third one, and this is really, really important, and this goes for any food. This even goes for the healthy foods, which is how do you feel afterwards? You have made the right food decision. You have put the right category of foods together if you are not hungry for a very long time. If you're hungry within an hour, you're hungry within 2 hours after you ate, there's a good chance that there were chemicals in there that hijacked your taste buds or stimulated your blood sugar, so your blood sugar has now crashed, or has made you, a lot of times some of these chemicals are what we call excitotoxins, and has made you really agitated, and many of us use food to soothe ourselves. So if you eat a meal and and the other one is if you're sleepy. So if you eat a meal, you're tired afterwards, you're hungry a couple hours later, you're agitated, and that keeps happening. You got to go back to food again. You can't stop thinking about that food, like that potato chip that they've sprayed chemicals on to make you dopamine addicted to the potato chip, and you can't just eat one. You got to go back and eat it over and over and over again. There is a good chance that you are eating these foods that are filled with toxins. So one thing you can do, and this is what we do in my family, is try to get foods without labels. Fruits and vegetables don't have labels. If you eat meat doesn't have labels. So let's try to go to foods that don't have labels. Now, other things you can do is build a fasting lifestyle. I think this is why a fasting lifestyle is working so well and why we've sold over 700,000 books of Fast Like a Girl, is because so many of you, and I read your reviews, I read your comments, and so many of you have told me, I've never been able to lose weight before. Put it in the comments if that was you. And I don't know why. I just took all my food, I compressed it into an eating window, I left longer for fasting, and now I dropped weight. Yeah, because you gave your body a longer chance to really heal and repair itself and take a break from all these chemicals that are being poured into our food system. It's the only equalizer I know right now, because our metabolic health is worse after the pandemic. I know here in America, our metabolic health was like only 12% of Americans were metabolically healthy, and then after the pandemic, it shot down, to 8%. And so when we fast, we're taking a break from all of these toxins that are in our food system. We also know that there's some incredible stories, or research that Sachin Panda has done, one of the premier fasting researchers, that shows that if you just compress all this toxic food into one short eating window, by short I mean 8 to 10 hour eating window, that you become metabolically immune from the damage these toxic chemicals are causing you. So here I sit, having taught fasting to the world for over a decade, having put books and books and out and videos and videos and videos out, and I'm more convinced today of a fasting lifestyle than ever before because of these chemicals in our food system. So, you have control of this. And I always say, Your health crisis may not be your fault. Your weight problem may not be your fault, but it is your responsibility. And knowing these chemicals is massively important, and coming up with a strategy to undo the harm they've created in your life is also incredibly important. So I'd love a conversation on this in the comments. So let me know is this new to you? Like, I'd love to know if this is new to you. That would be important. And did you notice that fasting changed your food preferences? And also let me know how much weight you lost fasting, because that always gets me excited. So as always, don't give up on yourself. You're a miracle. The food industry doesn't want you to know that. Big Pharma doesn't want you to know that. But I'm here to tell you, you're living in a body that wants to heal and repair. Just trust it. You just got to understand it. And I hope videos like this does that. So as always, hope that helps. Okay, where are my gals that are struggling with hormonal imbalance? Bloated, feeling like you're not making progress with weight loss? You need to add these foods in so that you can support better hormonal health. There is a lifestyle that estrogen wants you to live, and there's a lifestyle that progesterone wants you to live.